Hey there, creepy peeps. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome back. If you are returning, you guys liked the Shudder recommendations video so much that I gotta do another one. So like I said in my Shudder recommendations video, which if you haven't watched that, you should. I'll link it above. There are tons of streaming services available to us, which are coming in so handy during this time of social distancing and self-quarantining. So in that Shudder recommendations video, I asked you guys if you would want to see me give you recommendations for other streaming services, and somebody commented, Mr. White Trash, that Tubi should get some love, and I totally agree. Tubi is a free video streaming service, and they have a really decent selection of horror films. Now, it being free means there is ads, but if I'm comparing it to something like Hulu, where my cheap ass, I have the very basic Hulu package that does get ads, I see far less ads on Tubi than I do on Hulu. So, I mean, also, like in the Shudder video, in this recommendations video, I'm focusing on things that I think are hidden gems or underrated or under talked about horror movies. Tubi does have a whole lot of more mainstream horror movies that we all know and love. They have some of my all-time favorites that are on this shelf back here. I'm not going to talk about those. I'm going to talk about the hidden gems. So first one I'm going to start off with is Starry Eyes from 2014, which follows a hopeful young starlet who uncovers the ominous origins of the Hollywood elite and enters into a deadly agreement in exchange for fame and fortune. Spooky Astronauts, aka Emma, and I actually talked about this for one of our Does This Offend You episodes, which I will link here. I can't remember exactly which episode it was now. But I love the parallel of the cult mentality with the Hollywood elite within this movie. I feel like it's almost played off as a metaphor in the movie, but it's as you're watching it, you know that it's really not that far-fetched of a film, which is really sad and scary. It's more of a slow burn type of film, but the last act has so much gore and gross out moments that you'll totally be satisfied by the end. The next one I'm going to recommend is Lake Mungo from 2008, which I recently just watched because of one of my patrons, Azul's 2020 horror movie challenge, which I'll link in the description. The movie is an Aussie mockumentary about a family dealing with the mysterious death of their daughter, who they now believe is haunting their home. The home and the news footage in this movie looked so real. Honestly, as I was watching it, my brain kept getting confused. The whole time my brain is are you sure you're not watching a real documentary? Because it just looked so good. I think I mentioned this when I last talked about this movie, that for whatever reason, this movie just got under my skin. I can't really tell you why. I think it might be because it felt so real and it just kind of really creeped me out. I think it was the understatedness of the movie. There weren't any jump scares, and the ultimate reveal at the end isn't it's not huge or extremely horrific or anything crazy. I think that worked to the movie's advantage because it felt so real and not some crazy story that somebody thought up, which it is, but that's not how it feels when you're watching it. Next up is Frozen from 2010, which I mentioned kind of recently-ish in my Masters of Horror video about Adam Green. The movie follows 3 skiers who become stranded on a chairlift at a ski resort that has closed down for the week. As you would imagine, they face danger not only because of the elements being out in extreme cold, starvation, of course, and of course you have to add in another extra danger. They're the pack of wolves that are kind of hanging out around the skiers, just waiting for one of them to drop. This is a cool, pun absolutely intended, isolation horror movie with characters that you actually care about. But for it being an isolation horror movie, I like that it's a simple enough premise, but it presents a whole lot of different obstacles that the characters have to get over. Like I mentioned, the elements, the weather, starvation, trying to get down safely. The next movie I want to recommend to you is The Voices from 2014, which is a dark horror comedy about an unhinged factory worker who must decide whether to listen to his talking cat and become a killer or follow his dog's advice to keep striving for normalcy. As you can imagine, or if you've seen the movie already, you know that there's a bit of a darker, more serious underlying message about mental illness in the movie, but it's delivered in a comedic way that Ryan Reynolds, of course, just nails. The rest of the cast is just as star-studded. You have Anna Kendrick, Gemma Arterton, probably said that wrong, and Jackie Weaver. Reynolds also does the voices for the voices that he hears in his head in the movie, so that's pretty cool. And the movie also ends with a musical number, so you really have no excuse not to watch this movie. Another great hidden gem on Tubi is Clown from 2014, which follows a father who finds an old clown suit to wear for his son's birthday party, only to realize the suit is cursed and turns its wearer into a monstrous killer. This is easily one of the more unique killer clown movies out there. The suit literally becomes fused to this guy's body and starts to literally transform him, not just like mentally transform him into this monster, but literally transform him into a monster. Kind of how Seth Brundle fuses himself with that fly in The Fly. So there is a good amount of body horror that is infused into the classic killer clown trope. Try and say that 5 times fast. A really fun and kind of cute one is Odd Thomas from 2013, which takes place in a California desert town where a short-order cook with clairvoyant abilities encounters a man with a link to dark, threatening forces. This is an adaptation of a book series by Dean Koontz, which I have not read, so I don't know how it compares, but it's directed by Stephen Sommers, and I love The Mummy, which he also directed, so it's no surprise that I like this one too. A quick warning to my fellow sensitive babes out there. This movie stars a gone too soon Anton Yelchin. I admit I saw this movie a little bit late, so by the time I actually got around to watching it, Yelchin had unfortunately already passed. And I low-key cried at the end of the movie. Not even his last movie, so I really don't have an excuse for crying other than I'm a Cancer sign, so I cried. What? I can't help it. Okay, so this next one I'm going to talk about is also on Shudder too, if you have Shudder and don't want to try Tubi for whatever reason, but Tubi is free, so I don't know why you wouldn't want to try it. But anyways, in the comments of my Shudder video, Melissa reminded me about Housebound from 2014, which is a New Zealand horror comedy about a young woman who is sentenced to house arrest. So she's dealing with that, her parents, plus the fact that her house is haunted by a hostile spirit. As Melissa mentioned in her comments, it's rather apropos to watch this movie now, I think, for those of you guys that are stuck at home or you're working from home and you've, you know, been in close quarters for the past week, 2 weeks. Although don't fear, this movie does take a lighthearted approach, so it's not going to make you go even more stir crazy. Although don't be too misled by the horror comedy designation, because there are quite a few actually really terrifying scares in the movie. Next on my list of recommendations is Last Shift from 2014, and I'm realizing now that there have been a lot of 2014 movies that I'm recommending. That wasn't really intentional, so I guess subconsciously I thought 2014 just had a lot of horror bangers. I don't know. Anyway, Last Shift follows a rookie cop's first night on the job, which happens to be the last shift at a transitioning police station. As the night wears on, the dark past of the old station starts to make what should be an easy job an absolute nightmare. The frights in this movie come from the station's past, and particularly a very infamous criminal that was held at that station. I won't spoil how that infamous criminal is connected to the rookie cop or why it affects her so, but let me tell you, it does definitely take a toll on her mental state, and it becomes one of those we don't know what's real, we don't know what's not real kind of scenarios. Next on my list, and not from 2014, is Grave Encounters from 2011, which is a found footage movie that follows the crew of a ghost hunting TV show that spend the night in an abandoned psychiatric hospital hoping to catch some ghosts on camera. This movie does suffer from a couple occasional moments of bad CGI, but I like the premise for the movie, like having the characters be on this ghost hunting show, so that like so them catching scary things is their whole job. And as a found footage horror movie, it really helps to give that excuse for them to keep the cameras on a whole lot longer. So that moment of like, why don't you just drop the camera and run, doesn't come until much, much later in the movie, and instead of at like the halfway point with a lot of found footage horror movies. If you end up watching this movie and you like it, Tubi actually also has the sequel, which came out in 2012, which I don't think is really that bad of a movie either. Finally, I will recommend Dead End from 2003. This movie follows a family driving down an old road on Christmas Eve when strange events start unfolding. Yes, this is technically a Christmas horror movie, but only in the sense that it just happens to take place on Christmas. It's definitely nowhere near on the level of like Silent Night, Deadly Night, or Krampus. So you can totally watch it any time of year. And honestly, I recommend this movie on Lin Shaye's and Ray Wise's performance alone, because they are amazing in this movie. I love them both already, but just like together and in this film, it's amazing. It's a beautiful thing. And this one also has a little bit of like reality bending to like in Grave Encounters and like Last Shift. So there you have it. Those are 10 underrated / hidden gems that you can find on Tubi. Like I mentioned, Tubi is free, so you should definitely check it out. So hopefully with all of those recommendations, there's at least one movie on there that you haven't seen and can check out to kind of occupy your time while you're staying at home and staying safe. Speaking of that, I hope everybody is staying at home as you can and staying safe and staying healthy. Really quick, I'd like to thank my creepy patron peeps for their support of my channel. Thank you guys so much. If you want to find out the perks to being a creepy patron peep, you can follow that link in the description. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out. If you're new here or you've been lurking, subscribe. Become a creepy peep today. I post videos Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Trying to still provide content for you guys, even though we're not getting any new releases right now, which is a bummer. But yeah, subscribe, hang out. Thank you for listening to me talk. I will talk to you guys again very, very soon. Until then, stay strange. Bye.